Hello, welcome to Book Journey. Today, I will be discussing the book Multiplied by Zero Fail, The Rise and Fall of the Secret Service Multiplied by Carol Leonig, an award-winning journalist and Pulitzer Prize winner. On July 13, 2024, former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump was attacked by a gunman during a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. Although Trump sustained only minor injuries and the assailant, Crooks, was killed on the spot, the incident sparked widespread outrage. U.S. media outlets directed their criticism at the Secret Service, the government agency responsible for security, blaming its negligence for the attack. For instance, Multiplied by the Wall Street Journal, Multiplied by noted that the last assassination attempt on a sitting or former U.S. president dated back to the 1981 Reagan shooting, making this the most serious failure of the Secret Service in over 40 years. The Secret Service, a security agency under the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, is tasked with protecting the president and other high-ranking government officials. In government propaganda and Hollywood portrayals, Secret Service agents are often depicted as calm, tireless, and anonymous heroes, always clad in black suits, sunglasses, and communication earpieces, armed with high-tech weaponry. As of 2022, the Secret Service employed 7,000 agents with an annual budget of $2.2 billion. Due to its classified missions, the true nature of the Secret Service has always been shrouded in mystery. However, Leonig reveals a starkly different picture of the agency in her book. Beneath the official image of superheroes in black, the Secret Service is plagued by numerous issues, including budget and staffing shortages, a cumbersome and rigid leadership and decision-making system, and internal conflicts with other U.S. intelligence and security agencies. In the book's preface, Leonig bluntly criticizes the Secret Service, stating that its 40-year record of zero incidents in presidential security is largely attributable to sheer luck. Conversely, this prolonged period of peace has led to a gradual decline in the agency's operational effectiveness, morale, and security technology, transforming it from a once formidable force into a paper tiger. Leonig even predicted that unless the Secret Service undergoes significant reform, a major security incident involving the president or other high-ranking officials would occur. Given that the book was published in 2021 and the Trump attack happened just 3 years later, her prediction proved eerily accurate. Leonig, a senior reporter at Multiplied by the Washington Post Multiplied by, has long covered U.S. government affairs and won the 2015 Pulitzer Prize for her investigative series on the Secret Service. This book is an extension of that award-winning series. To write this book, Leonig spent 6 years interviewing over 180 current and former Secret Service agents, supervisors, and directors, as well as numerous U.S. government officials and members of Congress, amassing nearly 1,000 hours of interview recordings. The book stands as the most comprehensive and authoritative work on the history and inner workings of the U.S. Secret Service. Next, I will guide you through the lesser-known truths about the Secret Service, as narrated by Leonig. The Secret Service was born during a tumultuous, divisive, and traumatic period in U.S. history. On April 14, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. 3 months later, a new government law enforcement agency, the precursor to today's Secret Service, was established under the U.S. Treasury Department. While many assume that Lincoln's assassination highlighted the importance of presidential security, leading to the creation of the Secret Service, the truth is more nuanced. In fact, the Secret Service was not initially created to protect the president or other government officials, but to combat a different growing crime, counterfeiting. The U.S. Civil War had caused severe inflation, and both the Union and the Confederacy printed vast amounts of currency to fund their war efforts, leading to a flood of low-quality bills in circulation. Criminal organizations seized this opportunity to produce counterfeit money for profit. By the end of the war in 1865, an estimated one-third of all circulating U.S. currency was counterfeit. To combat counterfeiting, Lincoln heeded the advice of Treasury Secretary Hugh McCulloch and established a separate law enforcement division within the Treasury Department. Unfortunately, Lincoln did not live to see its creation. The first chief of the Secret Service, William Wood, was a decisive cavalry officer who had also participated in the investigation of Lincoln's assassination. At its inception, the Secret Service had only 10 agents, tasked not only with combating counterfeiting but also with addressing other serious crimes such as bank robberies, bootlegging, and gambling. Its responsibilities were fluid, and its staffing and funding were inconsistent, with a total workforce of just over 20. In modern terms, the early Secret Service was essentially a makeshift operation. However, 2 subsequent presidential assassinations fundamentally altered the Secret Service's role and mission: the 1881 assassination of President James Garfield and the 1901 assassination of President William McKinley at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo. Including Lincoln, 3 U.S. presidents had been assassinated in less than 40 years. Consequently, Congress passed legislation acknowledging the need for a permanent, professional agency to handle the daily security of the president and other high-ranking officials. Since Secret Service agents had long been informally involved in protecting presidents, this responsibility became their primary duty. Initially, due to a lack of professional training and an incomplete organizational structure, the Secret Service received poor reviews from the presidents it protected. President Theodore Roosevelt once told a friend, "If a determined assassin really comes after me, these so-called agents will be utterly useless." However, on November 1, 1950, the Secret Service finally had a moment of triumph. At the time, President Harry Truman was temporarily residing at Blair House while the White House underwent renovations. 2 Puerto Rican extremists saw an opportunity. If they could assassinate the president, they believed the U.S. government would cease interfering in Puerto Rico's affairs. In broad daylight, the 2 assailants approached Blair House with guns drawn. 2 Secret Service agents, Leslie Coffelt and Joseph Downs, engaged in a brief but intense firefight with the attackers. Both assailants were killed, but Coffelt was fatally wounded, becoming the first and only Secret Service agent to die in the line of duty while protecting a president. Truman later held a press conference, stating that as president, he had always been prepared for such dangers, but he also emphasized that the efficient and professional Secret Service was his most reliable safeguard. This successful operation led to the Secret Service's rapid expansion in the 1950s. By the early 1960s, it had 300 agents and an annual budget of $5 million. However, the post-World War II rise of the U.S. as a superpower led to exponential growth in government size and the number of official events, leaving the Secret Service feeling understaffed and overburdened. Leonig notes that while the Secret Service had over 300 agents at this time, most were stationed in field offices across the country. Only 34 agents were directly responsible for protecting the president at the White House, typically working in 6-person teams on 8-hour shifts. At the time, the Secret Service's recruitment standards were relatively simple: candidates in their early 20s with a college degree and military or police experience. Once hired, new agents received no systematic training and were expected to learn on the job by shadowing senior colleagues. However, the Secret Service faced a new challenge with the arrival of a charismatic but troublesome president, John F. Kennedy. At 43, Kennedy was youthful, energetic, and a magnet for attention wherever he went. The Secret Service found him particularly challenging because he deliberately cultivated a style of close, informal interaction with the public, often ditching his security detail to enjoy moments of freedom. One agent, Floyd Boring, recalled that while agents liked Kennedy for his affable nature and his habit of organizing social events and meeting their families to express gratitude, the president's playful antics often caused headaches. For example, in August 1962, while vacationing in Santa Monica, California, Kennedy slipped away from his security detail and went for a swim at a public beach. When beachgoers recognized him and shouted, "The president is here," chaos ensued as people jumped into the water to get closer to him. The Secret Service agents, forced to call for backup and set up a makeshift security perimeter, had to dive into the ocean in their uniforms to retrieve the president. Leonig also writes that Kennedy's notorious womanizing added significant security risks. Whether at the White House, hotels, or his private residences, unidentified young women often visited him at night, escorted by his friend and aide, Dave Powers. Agents who tried to follow protocol by questioning or registering these women were politely turned away by Powers. Many agents expressed concerns that the president's chaotic private life posed a serious security threat, as any of these women could potentially be spies or assassins. By November 1963, Kennedy was campaigning for re-election, and the Secret Service was alarmed by his packed schedule, which included visits to 9 cities in Florida and Texas within a month. The high-intensity itinerary presented unprecedented challenges for the agency's security efforts. On November the 22nd, Kennedy and his wife arrived at Dallas Love Field aboard Air Force One. Exhausted from days of non-stop travel, many experienced agents had been sent ahead to Austin and other cities to prepare for the president's upcoming visits. Meanwhile, large crowds gathered in Dallas to welcome the president, complicating security efforts. The local Multiplied by Dallas Morning News Multiplied by had published the approximate route of the presidential motorcade, leaving the Secret Service powerless to change it. To make matters worse, Kennedy, responding to the enthusiastic crowd, once again altered the security plan. Typically, 6 agents would stand on temporary footboards on the sides and rear of the presidential limousine to protect the first couple, but Kennedy waved them off and refused to install the custom bulletproof glass enclosure. As a result, the Secret Service agents could only follow in a Cadillac, leaving just one agent, Roy Kellerman, in the front passenger seat of the president's car. Around 12:30 p.m., the motorcade reached Dealey Plaza, preparing to turn onto Elm Street. As the cars slowed to 9 to 15 miles per hour for the sharp turn, a gunshot rang out. Kennedy appeared to sense something amiss and stopped waving to the crowd. Agents Clint Hill and Jack Reddy, standing on the rear footboards of the follow-up car, began scanning the crowd and buildings for signs of danger. Before they could react, 2 more shots followed, one hitting Kennedy in the neck and the other in the back of the head. Hill jumped from the Cadillac's footboard and sprinted toward the limousine, grabbing the trunk handle and climbing onto the car to shield the president and First Lady with his body. Meanwhile, Agent George Hickey, in the Cadillac, grabbed an AR-15 rifle and futilely aimed it around, trying to locate and suppress the shooter. Hill later recalled that the limousine's interior was a mess, as if a small bomb had exploded. He saw a pink mist of blood erupt from the president's head before Kennedy slumped onto First Lady Jacqueline's lap. Hill threw himself over the couple, and the motorcade sped toward Parkland Memorial Hospital under Kellerman's direction. However, it was too late. At 1 p.m., neurosurgeon Dr. William Clark emerged from the operating room to announce the president's death. The Secret Service's morale hit rock bottom. Agent Floyd Boring lamented that he and his colleagues had become the first agents in the agency's history to fail to protect a president, calling it the greatest failure. In the aftermath of Kennedy's assassination, the Secret Service faced a flood of criticism and scrutiny. However, this also allowed the agency's leadership to break free from past constraints and initiate sweeping reforms. For example, then-Director James Rowley implemented several changes. First, he recalled experienced agents from field offices to Washington, increasing the number of agents directly responsible for presidential protection to 50. Additionally, the Secret Service's overall size expanded again, with Rowley transferring 670 experienced personnel from other agencies, such as the FBI, to bolster its intelligence analysis, records management, and counterterrorism technology departments. Rowley also approved an unprecedented technological upgrade: the introduction of IBM's newly developed mainframe computers for data processing and record storage. Previously, the Secret Service relied on outdated paper files, requiring manual searches through vast card indexes, which were highly inefficient. Leonig notes that from the 1970s to the 1980s, the Secret Service's professionalism and responsiveness continued to grow, but this growth was largely driven by a series of high-profile attacks on U.S. presidents and government officials. These included the 1972 assassination attempt on presidential candidate and Alabama Governor George Wallace, and the March 1981 shooting of President Ronald Reagan. During this period, the Secret Service repeatedly upgraded its management systems, agents' security techniques, and equipment. For example, both the president and agents began wearing bulletproof vests in public, and agents established security perimeters at all public events. All agents underwent training in a standardized security protocol known as AOP, enabling them to control attackers, disarm them, and evacuate the president from the scene in the shortest possible time. Additionally, to address potential large-scale attacks on the president and other officials, the Secret Service formed a specialized tactical support unit called the Counter-Assault Team, equipped with advanced automatic weapons and sniper rifles, to provide overwhelming firepower against attackers. Under the influence of First Lady Nancy Reagan, the Secret Service established its first dedicated training center in Maryland in 1983. The center, modeled after Special Forces training facilities, featured a 500-acre simulated urban environment and a complex close-quarters combat training center. Agents could regularly conduct specialized security drills here, preparing for various scenarios, from long-range sniper attacks like the one that killed Kennedy to close-range shootings like the Reagan incident. Agents also received training in specialized techniques, such as evasive driving, forming effective protective formations to escort VIPs into vehicles and buildings, and engaging in close-quarters gunfights with terrorists in urban and indoor settings. Thanks to these measures, both the White House and the Secret Service enjoyed a relatively safe period in the 1980s, with operational effectiveness and morale at their peak. Multiple assassination attempts on the president were thwarted in their early stages. For example, in April 1989, a mentally ill veteran named Robert Dowd attempted to assassinate President George H.W. Bush during a visit to Detroit. However, upon arriving at the event, Dowd found the security measures so stringent, with all attendees passing through Secret Service manned checkpoints and snipers patrolling all vantage points, that he abandoned his plan. 4 months later, Dowd was arrested during a failed bank robbery and confessed to the attempted assassination. By the 21st century, the Secret Service's burden had grown heavier, as its list of protectees expanded to include not only the president, government officials, and visiting foreign dignitaries, but also presidential candidates during election campaigns. In 2008 alone, the Secret Service spent over $100 million on protecting presidential candidates, largely due to the emergence of Democratic candidate Barack Obama, whose candidacy angered some extremist white supremacist groups. In August 2008, the Secret Service and FBI collaborated to thwart an assassination plot against Obama during the Democratic National Convention in Denver, Colorado. 3 members of a white supremacist group called the Silent Sons were arrested with sniper rifles, bulletproof vests, and radios planning to shoot Obama during his speech. After their arrest, the Secret Service took no chances, erecting large bulletproof glass panels on either side of the stage and deploying counter-sniper teams at key locations around the venue. However, compared to the Secret Service's internal issues, such progress seemed insignificant. Many insiders, including Leonig, argue that the 2003 decision to place the Secret Service under the Department of Homeland Security was a major factor in the agency's decline in effectiveness and increase in bureaucratic red tape. Former agent Dan Bongino, in his memoir Multiplied by Life Inside the Bubble Multiplied by, likened the merger to a small, agile startup being acquired by a slow-moving multinational corporation. The merger led to inevitable layoffs and downsizing, resulting in the loss of many talented agents. Bongino noted that after the 2003 merger, the Secret Service became a relatively minor branch within the Department of Homeland Security, forced to compete with other agencies for limited resources and budgets. The agency grew insular and conservative, fearing encroachment from other departments. In this environment, the Secret Service became risk-averse, rejecting any radical or high-risk innovations. After all, as the saying goes, the more you do, the more you can go wrong, so it was safer to aim for mediocrity. During this period, several security lapses served as wake-up calls for the stagnant Secret Service. For example, on the evening of September 19, 2014, a mentally ill man named Omar Gonzalez easily scaled the White House's northern fence, crossed the lawn, and entered the building, reaching the East Room before being subdued by agents. Fortunately, President Obama and his family had already left for Camp David aboard Marine One. Why did such a serious breach occur? The White House's security fence, nearly 30 years old and only 7.5 feet (2.3 meters) high, was no significant obstacle for an adult male. Bongino sarcastically noted that even the fencing around the Salt Lake City Olympic Village was taller. Additionally, the infrared sensors on the lawn, which should have triggered an alarm as Gonzalez ran toward the White House, were either malfunctioning or had been turned off by the Secret Service. By the time the alarm was finally raised, Gonzalez had already covered considerable ground. According to protocol, the monitoring center should have alerted all 154 agents on duty at the White House, and trained guard dogs should have been released to track the intruder. However, the Secret Service's sophisticated radios lacked a broadcast all function, so only a few agents received the alert. To make matters worse, the officer responsible for the guard dogs was on a personal call and missed the alert entirely. Although Director Julia Pearson resigned following the incident, the Secret Service's upgrades to White House security remained limited. In the summer of 2016, the U.S. witnessed its most contentious and chaotic presidential election to date, with the Secret Service tasked with protecting another controversial candidate, Donald Trump. On March 1, during a campaign rally in Louisville, Kentucky, Trump's event devolved into a riot as his supporters and private security clashed with protesters. With limited Secret Service agents on hand, the situation spiraled out of control, resulting in a young black college student, Nwaka Onwuka, being assaulted by white supremacists. Onwuka recorded the attack on her phone and shared it on social media, leading to widespread criticism of both Trump and the Secret Service. Leonig writes that agents assigned to protect Trump revealed two reasons for such incidents. First, Trump's extreme and provocative style attracted more protesters. Second, his campaign and security teams lacked experience managing large political rallies and failed to coordinate effectively with the Secret Service. To prevent further incidents, the Secret Service had to significantly increase the number of agents assigned to Trump's campaign events, at one point deploying up to 4,000 agents. Once Trump won the election and moved into the White House, the Secret Service found itself facing even greater challenges. First, Trump's large family, 18 members, including his wife, children, sons-in-law, daughters-in-law, and grandchildren, required a substantial security detail, far exceeding that of any previous president. Additionally, Trump frequently traveled to his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida, to play golf. His wife Melania and son Barron also requested to spend at least 5 months a year at Trump Tower in Manhattan to oversee the Trump Organization's operations. These demands forced the Secret Service to allocate additional personnel and funds, leading to a $60 million emergency budget request just weeks after Trump's election. The following year, Congress reluctantly approved the Secret Service's budget increase, but the funds did little to improve the agency's efficiency. Then-Director Randolph Alice complained to Trump that the Secret Service needed funds for critical upgrades, such as modernizing its Joint Operations Command Center, revamping long-term training programs, repairing the White House's electronic security systems, and hiring more agents. However, much of the additional budget was spent on travel expenses for agents accompanying Trump and his family on their frequent trips or on upgrading security at Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower. In the first 8 months of Trump's presidency, his family's travel expenses were 16 times those of the Obama family during an entire year. Another issue Trump created for the Secret Service was his distrust and desire for control. He dismissed several experienced Secret Service supervisors simply for disagreeing with his policies, while showing little interest in critical matters such as security upgrades or the adoption of new technologies. An anonymous Department of Homeland Security official told Leonig that anyone planning a terrorist attack on the White House or the president would find the real Secret Service vastly different from its Hollywood portrayal. That concludes our overview of Multiplied by Zero Fail, the rise and fall of the Secret Service multiplied by. Leonig, a senior reporter at Multiplied by The Washington Post, Multiplied by and Pulitzer Prize winner, provides a detailed account of the Secret Service, a mysterious security agency that has operated for over 150 years since its founding in 1865. From its origins as a temporary law enforcement agency to its current role as the primary protector of the U.S. President and White House officials, the Secret Service's evolution mirrors the United States' rise from a fledgling nation to a global superpower. At the same time, Leonig argues that since the 21st century, the Secret Service has faced unprecedented challenges and crises, both internal and external. Globalization and new technologies have intensified the threats the agency must confront, ranging from lone criminals to global terrorist organizations and transnational crime syndicates. The widespread use of mobile internet has made it easier for these groups to coordinate and plan attacks. Emerging technologies such as drones, 3D-printed firearms, and cyberattacks have also forced the Secret Service to continuously upgrade its capabilities to address these new threats. However, due to internal organizational rigidity and bureaucratic inefficiencies, the agency has struggled to adapt, often resorting to reactive measures. Leonig suggests that the Secret Service's 40-year record of no major security incidents, from the 1981 Reagan shooting to the 2024 Trump attack, is largely due to incredible luck.